Hello, everybody, and welcome to Athletic Definition. My name is Coach Ray, and today my guest is Anel Hernandez, and she is a mom, I would say first, uh, and then a wife, sister, marathoner, Boston qualifier, and you also finished it, so that's amazing. We'll be sure to get into all that. It's part of my Women's History Month. I'm trying to do the whole month dedicated to all the inspirational women. And, even before Women's History Month, I just I like to mix it up because to me, there's inspirational women and men out there. And when I met you, I knew you were fast. So I was like, oh, it's just a matter of trying to get all the guests on at different times. I know a lot of people just want me to do runners, but I'm like, that wouldn't be me. So I like to mix it up. So finally, I get you on here. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Fireside. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I always usually get started with finding out as a little kid, were you active? Were you a video game kid? Did your parents like sports and take you, on the weekends like a lot of parents do here in the United States?
Um, I didn't go to many sports, but we did watch sports, all sports. I mean, I have an older brother. We watch football. We watch all sports. So earlier on, I enjoyed watching football. And here and there, I mean, I would go to a baseball game, but not too many live games. So yeah, I mean, I think I grew up, again, at least just being exposed. Yeah,
Sorry.
and I enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And since you mentioned you watch football, like, was there any particular team that you like now?
Back then, the Raiders, and my
Okay.
brother he still is, uh, a fan. So really have a team now, but I love all sports.
And looking at your bio, I'm native to LA, and also my parents came from Mexico as well. And in the neighborhood and the time, it looks like you were going. It was kind of a was it a dangerous time what was it, Hawthorne at the time or Lexington?
And next, I mean, there was everything. Yeah, I mean, I I saw a lot of things, in middle school, high school. I mean, there was, drugs, there was gangs. You would hear and it was the times when I guess you call it hot, or like when things are happening. I've had friends who were, you know, killed by gangs or shootings because of, something they weren't even gang related, but I saw different things out there. But I mean, just growing up with my parents being very supportive and trying to keep me, in me that school's important and to try to do well as best that I could. I think that made a big difference, and I thank them because I mean I could have gone a different route,
Right.
but you know, and my friends around me too. We all had parents who um, instilled in us to do well in school and try to stay focused.
And so in like junior high and high school, did you play sports? Were you into any of that?
I was not in. I mean, I liked softball. I played it a few times in middle school, and then in high school. Actually, since elementary, I was a cheerleader. So I did cheer. I did flags. I did more like again, supporting the sports and being out there and cheering the football team and the basketball team. But I didn't do any sports, and that's something that you always think, if I can go back, I would definitely try to at least maybe softball, even track and field. You know, I started running a little older, so I think I would have enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and that's the good part though, because there's people out there who never played sports in high school or never were good enough to play sports in high school like I was, and so I kind of gave up on it, and like you yourself, I started late. So for people listening in that maybe like, oh well, I was never very into sports, or to think that you can start running later and still run Boston Marathon, that's very impressive. So I know you started running because your sister was training for to be a police officer. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I would go with her sometimes to the track and I would just stand there, to be honest, and just watch her go around the track. And then she would say, come on. So I would run a few laps and I'm like, no, this is just not for me. Like, I was just like, I guess I was 16,
Oh, okay.
17, and I was just, what, a senior year. And I was just like, this is not for me. And then, yeah, I mean, just one day she would run half marathons after she became an officer, and she would tell me, let's go run. And I'm like, no, nah, that's not for me. And one day I met up with a friend that I hadn't seen for a while. And she, Connie Peddleton, she actually owns a little gym now. She owns her own business. And
Nice.
like, let's go run. And I'm like, what? I'm like, all right. So we actually ran, if I remember, like 5 to 6 miles running, just talking casual. And I'm like, wait, we just ran 6 miles. And then after that, I mean, I just felt like, wow, I like this. So that's kind of where I started running, to be honest. Yeah.
And so you mentioned your sister ran half marathons. Is that what
Yeah.
planted the seed for you to do an actual race?
Yes, definitely. She would say, well, before, I ran the when I started actually running the 6, 7 miles, she was like, come on, sign up for a half. And I'm like, that's 13 miles. That's 7 more that I'm running right now. And finally, I signed up for the inaugural Rock and Roll in 2010. And and to be honest, I ran like with whatever. Like, I was wearing cotton clothes. Like, I remember to this day, I'm like, I didn't know about dry fit. I didn't know like anything about, just I got some tennis shoes and I wore some sweats and a t-shirt, and I'm like, okay. And so I ran it, and I'm like, wow, like the feeling of the people and everyone, and just crossing that finish line and feeling wow, and of accomplishment. Like, I just ran 13.1 miles. And since then, I fell in love with racing, with running.
And I want to backtrack a little bit because you also went to school and you were kind of like teetering, this isn't for me, running or not. So when you ran your first marathon, were you already done with school or you did it while you were going to college?
That was in 2010. I was done with school already.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I
during
finished.
college,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was pretty much studying all the time or frat parties maybe.
Well, I was, to be honest, like high school, I was always overweight. Like growing up, I was overweight, elementary, middle school, high school. I mean, you always have that self image. I was always the heaviest from all my friends. We would go to the beach, and I would feel self conscious, like, oh, um, but I mean, I was always not like, oh, I need to lose weight or this and that. But I always looked at myself like, oh, I'm the heaviest one, like, and then one day, I think it was like in 2000, I was after high school, like 99 or so. I just can't recall the year. My friend, told me that she wanted me to be in her wedding. And I was like, what? Like, I have to wear a dress, like, just going back to that self image. And I'm like, oh, wait, I got to lose weight. Like, you always think, oh, I got to lose weight to look good, right? Or, I mean, that's how we kind of see it being young. But so I just started exercising. I would go to the gym, I would eat better. And then I saw the weight was coming off. And I'm like, oh, I was feeling better and feeling better. Not just, the way I look, but just feeling better, healthy wise. And then after that, I kind of just, and then when running, running with my friend and getting into the half marathon, that's when I kind of like just continued, like, I loved it. So I just kept going, and I haven't stopped.
So how long have you been running now for?
Since 2010. So
Okay.
a little bit over 11 years.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, Dean Karnassus was, one of the well-known runners around the world. He started at age 30 and
Mhm.
he's 59. So I hope to keep running for a long time too. I started running late. The year I went to, well, my junior high was private and they had track and field. But the year that I got into, you can only do it in 7th and 8th grade. They were rebuilding the track, so they skipped it. So I didn't get to participate. And then one of the track coaches in high school asked me to try out. And I'm like, no, not really. And I beat people, but my grades weren't up to par. So, it was the crazy eras back then. So I never made it, and that was it. And I look back at points, and I'm like, man, if I would have started running earlier too.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm very satisfied with what I've accomplished without having that background. And you should be too. Now,
Yeah, I mean, I was running a few half marathons here and there, and I mean, I wasn't I mean, I ran my first marathon in 2012, and I would just run one a year until I really kind of enjoyed it. Like that's my favorite distance, marathon. So, yeah.
and so from the half marathon, at what point did you decide, a marathon, or did you know there was a marathon, or how long it actually was?
Going back to my friend Connie, the one I ran with, the first 6 miles I ever ran with,
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "Come on, we're all gonna sign up for a marathon," and I'm like, "What? That's double that what I already running." And so it was five of us. We started training, and we were run, Dockweiler Beach and Venice Beach and Redondo Beach. And I was the last one to sign up. Like it was literally a few weeks before the marathon, and I would fill up my application, and then and then I would just sit there and like stare at it, and I wouldn't submit it, and then I would go back, leave it, and then another day I would fill it up, and then finally I guess I paid the most. It was like that fee when it was like the highest. So I finally hit submit, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like even though I was already training, the commitment of like, I'm really going to run it. I mean, it was just like very powerful. I was like, oh my gosh, I signed up. And all the girls were like, okay, but we all ran it, but at our own pace. And I'm the only one still running. I mean, they run here and there, but I'm the only one that continued to race, because after that marathon, even though it was really hard, it wasn't easy. You know how it is, your first marathon, you're like, what did I do? Why did I, and you cross the finish line, and it's like, wow, and would I run another one? I don't know. And then you just kind of like, I'm going to try it again. So I would run LA every year for the last, I don't know, it was since 2012 to 2017. I ran it every year.
And I have a variety of people listening. So for those, what you mentioned earlier is like running your first 6 miles talking is not an easy thing. Having conversation while you're running, that's not easy. And what was your first marathon?
My first marathon was Los Angeles Marathon.
Los Angeles Marathon?
2012, yeah.
Okay. And even though you had already finished the half marathon, you were still having that little bit of self-doubt. How many half marathons had you completed up to that point?
Well, I did my first one, not many.
No,
maybe 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a lot for me, because I didn't even know there was a half marathon. I jumped straight into the marathon
because I did the 2010 and then the 2011, 2 or 3 maybe the most. Yeah. And then 2012, that's when I ran LA.
And how was it when you finished?
I mean, when they say you hit a wall, I definitely thought then I hit a wall. I was tired. I had a few blisters on my feet. But just the feeling that I finished and I ran the 26, I just felt amazing. Like, wow, like who runs 26.2 miles, But I felt great. I mean, physically, no, but, mentally and just a sense of accomplishment. Like, wow, I did that,
Yeah, it was a great sense of accomplishment for me. And I said, I'm one and done. And 6 months later, I was in Long Beach Marathon. So I know the feeling. And for women, a lot of them that I run with or train with, or it's their nails. They don't like to lose them. So did you lose any nails your first marathon?
You know what? I don't remember, to be honest.
Okay.
But I'm one of those runners. You know how they say you have to wear half size or full size bigger, like your shoes.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
I'm right. Like I like my shoes. I don't want to say snug, but like right the size that I use. That's what I wear.
Really? Okay.
And I don't like the feeling of feeling my shoes loose. I don't feel like it affects me in any way. So
No,
yeah.
no, that's good. Everyone's different, and it's
Yeah.
good to know that. Me, I think just my feet swell up, so that they feel like that in the beginning, or they used to, and now they just feel normal as the race goes on. And maybe from making my shoe size a little bigger, I think maybe your feet do get bigger. I'm not quite sure, but
Yeah, I don't know.
it feels good now. But that's the common advice. So I
Right.
give it to people: get a half size bigger, at least for the actual marathon, or a little bit before, so you can get used to it.
Yeah.
And so, after your first LA marathon, did you have that? That's it, or did you want to keep doing it?
In the beginning, I did. I was like, you know what, that's it. I mean, 26 miles. I'll just stick to the halves, and I was running halves. That's what I enjoyed at the time. I was running, signing up for a few halves here and there, and um, I said, you know what? It was getting closer to LA again in 2013. And I said, what about if I just run LA every year, like, or try, that'll be like my marathon, work hard for it and train as best as I could and run it every year. And that was like a goal that I made. So I was running, like I mentioned, I run LA every year and I ran a few other marathons in between. Um, so yeah, I ran Long Beach, San Diego. What else? The mountains to beach, Ventura. So just local. I stay local. Yeah. So
I have not done mountains to beach yet. That's one that I haven't done. But the other ones you mentioned, I've done. So is LA your favorite?
yeah. I mean, one of my favorites. Yeah. I mean, it's your city and just you run all the landmarks and yeah. I could say it's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, for me too. Just because it's growing up in Los Angeles, and then especially when they changed it. I think it was 2010 when they did this Stadium to the Sea, and that was such a great course. And just seeing all the city come out and support you, so that to me was really special because the diversity here is so great. Where you're running through, I mean, you get Indian people, Salvadorian people, Mexican people, West Hollywood. You got the male cheerleaders out there. You have the Jewish community. You run through Hollywood, and everyone just showing support. So I love it. It just shows the diversity and how people can come out and support each other regardless of their personal beliefs. So I love LA for that reason. And at what point did Boston come into mind, or trying to qualify? Were you always pretty fast, or did you know, train super hard for that?
I mean, I think I was pretty like, I've always been able to, if I wanted to like try to run faster, I would just, try and train. But it just hit me one day. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to train for Boston. It wasn't like when I was running marathons, it never really crossed my mind to qualify. But then you hear people talking about it, or I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try it. I want to try to run faster. I want to try to see if I can qualify. So I trained on my own, to be honest. Like I would, my first Boston qualifier, I trained on my own. Um, I mean, with friends here and there, but I pretty much my speed work, I would do it on my own. Um, my long runs, I would do it with friends. So I guess not alone, but I guess I'm thinking about
But no coaching. You didn't have like a
yeah,
running
no, I
coach.
didn't
Okay.
have a coach for my first um, Boston qualifier, and I ran Ventura Marathon. Um, yeah, and I stayed with the Pacers the whole time. Um, and yeah, I think it was like maybe two or three of us that finished with the Pacers. But it was a great feeling because I mean, I was running and I felt comfortable. The pace, I mean, it was a warm day, but I guess the training, I mean, of course, the training paid off and I felt pretty good. Besides, it being warm. And I came, halfway, I came across a friend, Ricardo Cuevas, and he was on a bike and he was like, "Hey, do you need anything?" And I'm like, yeah, I'll take some water. So I didn't want to stop, at the eight or at the water stations. So he got me a water bottle and I ran with it a few miles. And then I think that helped me a lot. And then just crossing the finish line and it was the day that I qualified was my grandmother's passing anniversary. I can't recall how many years, but it was just special. So knowing that, I was like, oh, this is for you, and it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah, that's even more special when you do something and you're dedicating it or have that in the back of the mind for relatives. I don't do too many with that, but there's a few in there that I have those special memories of someone passing, and it's like a great way to remember them and show tribute.
Yeah.
So you qualified for Boston in the Ventura Marathon.
Yes. And
Okay.
2000, was it 16, I believe, or
Oh,
15? 15 maybe. Yeah.
okay. So running for about 5 years, and then within 5 years, with no real running experience in you know middle school, junior high, or high school, college, you qualified for Boston. So that deserves and actually, it's inspirational for people so that they can hear and be like, oh, it's possible, because everyone thinks it's not possible till someone does it, and then they're like,
Yeah.
oh, if they can do it, I can do it, which is not good to go copy everybody, but it's good to have that, you have that idea of possibility.
Yeah. Thank you.
And then so after Boston, is that when you got married, or you were already married at the time?
I got married. I can't even think. I got married in 2008, so I was already married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So running and training for a marathon is very time consuming, and it's always good if you have the support of whoever you're seeing, dating, or married to at the time. Was your husband pretty supportive, or is he a runner himself, or no?
He is not a runner, but I mean, he saw or he sees that, that's what I enjoy doing. And he was very supportive. I mean, on the weekends were my long runs, and I'm the morning person. He's not. So I would wake up, do my long runs, and I would come home and, but he was very supportive. He's like, I see that you like it, so keep going. Like, he was like, you can totally do what you want to do, like, when I was telling him I'm going to train for Boston, he's like, to do it, like, but he's always been very, very supportive.
And so, how was Boston for everybody listening? And Boston's like the Super Bowl of run for marathons for runners. I would say it's like the oldest marathon in the United States, and everybody wants to qualify for that. So, how was that experience for you?
I mean, it was amazing from beginning to end. The spectators, the people, everywhere you turn, there's people, and just everybody cheering you on. And I mean, it's not an easy course. I didn't find it easy, but my goal was just to finish, and I finished, and it was just an amazing experience. Just talking to runners and seeing all the different people was just amazing. I mean, I can't. I wish everybody would get a chance, to even go even as a spectator. Like it's amazing from beginning to end. So yeah,
So, how many times have you run Boston?
I've gone twice.
Twice. So,
Yes.
how many times have you qualified for Boston then?
I've qualified 3 times.
Very nice. Okay.
Yes.
So, did you do back to back years for Boston, or?
Yes, I went on 2016 and 17.
And what was your second qualifying race? The first one was Ventura.
Yeah, and then it was mountains to beach.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
And then, which has been your fastest race? Do you recall out of them all? Did you PR in Boston, maybe?
No, well, no, mountains to beach was my PR. I trained like that was like the race I can say I trained the hardest. Like my goal was to BQ and maybe like PR. I was thinking like 5 minutes, maybe 10, and it was just I PR'd by like what was it, 35, almost 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, but I worked I worked so hard. I remember I worked really really hard for that race, and when I ran it, it was the race that I think I felt the most comfortable, and like it wasn't easy, but I just felt like it was smooth. Towards the end, it was a little hard, but I felt great. I felt great. I put in the work. Like it was hard. I put in the work, and I tried to eat as best as I could. I mean, it wasn't like a strict diet, but I was really like trying my best to have a good race, and I did. And it's just I think it's one of my most memorable races because of that. Like that could happen. You could have a good race and feel good at the end, and yeah, that was a really good race for me.
So I think it's possible not to hit the wall during a
Yeah.
race. Would you say you didn't hit it in mountains to beaches?
No, I mean, there's been a few, could say marathons that I feel like I haven't hit the wall anymore. I think nutrition is key. Like, that's one thing that I learned when I was going through the Nutribullet team. They talked a lot about nutrition. And, even though, you're not hungry or you feel like you need it, it's like be consistent. And after that, like my racing also changed. Like I felt like there's no wall. Like, yeah, I feel tired, but like that there's a wall that I'm like, oh, I can't, or this is too hard. I mean, it is hard, but I don't believe in the wall as much as I did before. My nutrition now is consistent, and I try my best to stay consistent, like I mentioned. And I mean, I think that's key for me.
Oh, nutrition is very key for everybody. I had no coach, so I did everything you could do wrong, and I drank the whole night before a marathon, ate the wrong stuff. So I've hit the wall plenty of times, and then I've had really good races where I'm like, I feel great. I didn't even hit
Yeah.
the wall, and it all has to do with nutrition and your training that you put in. Um, so after Boston, is that when you had? How many daughters do you have? One or two?
Just one.
Just one. Is so? It was after Boston.
Yeah, I had her in 2009. So she just turned 3 like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I love the pictures of you pushing your daughter in the stroller. Um, I always talk about when I'm running an LA marathon, you always see the moms pushing them in the stroller and they're having that conversation and I'm like dying and they're like talking to each other about what they did in the weekend. I'm like, I'm so jealous, but they're just passing me. I mean, more credit to them, but I'm like, how do they do that? And that's amazing that you do that. I always, that just shows you there's no excuses. So does your daughter enjoy it? Does she always enjoy it? Does she want to go with you?
She enjoys it. I started running, jogging with her when she was about 6 months. And she would just look, she loves looking around. I would talk about the dogs, and you try to keep them engaged, because you don't want them to cry, or I didn't want her to cry, but it seemed like she enjoyed it. And I would take her, usually just around my neighborhood. I mean, that's the time that I could get my run in, so I would run with her. I didn't really run alone a lot. Maybe on Saturdays when my husband would be home, and I would go out and run, and he would stay with her. But other than that, during the weekday after work, I would, put her in the jogging stroller, running stroller, and we would go for a few miles. And I mean, because that's what I enjoy doing, is running. And like I wasn't able to exercise or run when I was pregnant, so I was like, I am gonna do this. I want to do this. I want to try. And yeah, I mean, she enjoys it. Even now, sometimes when I take her, she's like, "Mama, faster, faster, faster," and I'm like, "Okay, I can. You're getting bigger," especially in the hills. But she enjoys it. She loves it. You know? Yeah.
So when you're saying you weren't able to work out while you were pregnant, is that in the later stages or in the early stages or the whole
Since the
time?
beginning, yeah, I was high risk.
Mm.
One, my age, but other issues that the doctor's like, nope, no running. And I'm like, what? I always thought I was going to be this pregnant woman running in my belly. And I mean, it was a little hard, but then I'm like, I want my baby, of course. I want to have a healthy baby. And I know, like, if I knew I was going to try my best to get back to running or trying to get back, exercising, because that's just in me. Like I was doing it for so long, to stay healthy, that I'm like, that's the first thing I'm like, well, what can I exercise? And I started slowly. The first time I went for a run was a mile, and I was dying after I gave birth, and I came home crying to my husband, like, I'm so heavy, and I just feel heavy and I can't breathe. And he's like, it's okay, that's how you're gonna feel. But with all the hormones and everything, you start like, doubting yourself. But then you start, I start thinking like, slowly, one day at a time and 1 mile at a time. So yeah, so I just continued running with my daughter, and then running alone here and there. So it's helped me, continue and my running and
And
doing what I like.
so, about how much time did you wait after your daughter was born to start running again?
She was about 6, 7 months when I
Okay.
started. Yeah.
And then how long do you think it took you to feel like I'm back? I'm back to my old self. Or do you even feel you've hit there yet?
Um, yes and no. Like, yes, in the sense that I feel good running now. But like, yeah, I could say I'm back. Um, maybe not my speed, because that's not like what I could train for, or the time that I have to train for. Of course, I always have back of my mind, oh, I wish could run faster, or I want to run this. But it's like priorities, that can maybe come later, like maybe later on. Once she's a little older, I can make goals. Goal is to try to requalify for Boston one day. Maybe not goal, but just to feel, and not to feel, but to try and know that maybe I'm older, and after my baby, I can work hard. I know if I work hard, I'm sure I can. But it's just not like I don't have the time right now. So
Of
I do
course.
I do what I can right now, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it.
So that's great. You still have the goal of going back to Boston, and I think it's always great to have goals. You have to have short term goals and long term goals. So, and I wanted to mention because I believe, and you put it in your bio, that there was one race that you DQ'd, but I wouldn't really call it a DQ. I think
Oh,
something happened to you. I think you got sick.
the DNF. That
Yes.
was yeah, it was the year before I had my daughter. I was having some hip issues. Like, my hips were aching. And to be honest, I mean, I went to the doctor. They didn't find anything. I mean, I got some therapy, basic, 15 minutes here and there, just make sure I'm stretching and things like that. I mean, they didn't see anything, but I trained for LA for that 2018 in pain. Like, it was pain, not pain, pain, non-pain, no pain. I remember my last long run was 20 miles and alone. This was alone. And it was just like a roller coaster, like pain, and then, oh, I feel okay, pain, oh, I feel okay. And then once LA came, even the night before, I told my husband, should I even try running? Like, I don't even know. I don't feel like running, because I guess I was training in pain, that I just didn't feel like running. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to the start line, and I'm gonna see how I feel. And if I don't feel okay, then I'm okay with not finishing. So I went in that, with that mentality, and so I was feeling okay. Mile, 5, 6. When I got to 8, I started feeling that pain. I'm like, oh, I'm like, I guess I'm training with that pain. I just didn't want to run with pain. Could I have finished LA? Yeah, I'm sure, but in pain, probably the roller coaster of pain, or even injured, even more. So I even made it to mile 11, and I saw a friend, an acquaintance on the sideline, and I said, hey, can I borrow your phone? I'm going to call my husband to pick me up. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like running. Like, I'm aching. And so I called my husband, and I'm like, can you pick me up? And he's like, okay, well, where are you? And then my friend, or the guy, he heard me. He's like, I'll take you to the finish line. I'm like, oh, okay, because I had my drop bag and my phone was in there. So he took me to the finish line. I grabbed my stuff, and I stayed at the finish line, maybe like around like 2, 3 hours, cheering the runners. And then, I was tired, so I'm like, I went home. But I was okay with it. You know, in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I didn't finish, but I was okay. I was okay.
That's good because for a lot of people, it comes down to ego. And I know myself, I'll be like, oh, if it's a training run, I don't care. I'll stop it early. Like if
Yeah.
I'm just not feeling it, but I'm like a marathon, I'll drag my carcass over. And so there's times where you have to think about the long term. Like, do you want to keep running? Do you want to keep running healthy? And that's the only reason I brought it up, because I'm sure there's other people who have been through that and maybe they're still struggling with like, but in the long run, you want to be able to keep running for as long as you can. At least I do, because I enjoy it. So it's not worth it for me to go and end up being so hurt that I'm going to be out so long. Uh, Luckily, I haven't had any pain like that, but there's still some training runs where I'm like, I'm going to cut it short.
Yeah.
And have you set a time frame for returning to Boston?
I have not, to be honest. No. I mean, I've had a few friends say, come on, let's train to go, and I'm like, oh no, like, it's too soon. Like, I know the work that I have to put in. Like, it's not like, oh, I'm just going to try to qualify. I have to work, especially now, like, being a little, I mean, I don't want to say older. There's never a time, but it's just, I had my baby and things are just so different now. And I don't have the time to train. I know the time it takes, at least for me, to train and to put in the work. And it's just, I don't have the time right now. So maybe later on, when she gets a little older, I don't know.
But you're just running more like for fun, not to try to qualify.
Yes, I'm running for fun right now. I'm running on Saturdays with the LA Roadrunners. And that's how I ran my first marathon after my daughter. Like I said, I want to train for it for LA, and let me train with a group. And so I applied to be a pacer, and they accepted me. So I trained with the group. My comeback was with the group, feeling that experience of putting in the miles. I was feeling it with them. I'm not an expert, so I wanted to do it with other people, and it was awesome. I mean, I paced the group, and it was an awesome experience to run with the group. You have people that you talk with on the week on the long runs, and just, and even though it was like COVID time, pre-COVID time. I mean, no, actually, it was during COVID. So um, it was a great experience to run with them. Yeah, and come back on my first marathon.
And so now we're 9 days away, I think, from LA Marathon. How are you feeling? Are you ready?
Yeah, as ready as I could be. The only thing I'm like, I didn't get a break from the other from LA November. Like in the beginning after LA, it kind of took me a while to get back into the groove. Like I was feeling a little tired and just like, oh, I got to get up and do my long runs, or. But once I got into it again, I mean, I feel good. And again, training with amazing, a group people, just sharing experiences, talking, and just going going with that experience of training for another marathon together. It's just a nice feeling, like not being alone. So I totally recommend people want to run with a group. Yeah.
So do I, especially for the long runs. I could do, I would say maybe 10 miles, 13 miles, pretty easy by myself. It's not too bad. But after that, I like the company.
Yeah.
Or seeing someone in front of me or knowing people are behind me. It makes all the difference in the world. And then you finish and you wait for each other and usually have lunch. So it's a very enjoyable time. And so I know there's a couple of running groups. You mentioned the Roadrunners, and I know they're a training group for Los Angeles Marathon,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We meet on Saturdays in Santa Monica. So when people register for LA, there's an option to join the group, and yeah, we meet every Saturday in Santa
Okay,
Monica.
and then and you also run with I think what is it? Is it Run With Us?
Run with us in Pasadena. Yeah, they have fun runs on Mondays, and then on Sundays they have their trail runs. And if you click on the link, and you'll see that we go to different locations. different trails. We have preview runs for trail runs. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's again trail and then there's road. So it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I run with us a few times and gone to. They had like a few ultra runners going there to talk, and I would just go there to try to absorb knowledge and do their fun run. So I'm familiar with them. They're like a running specialty store, so they're in Pasadena, and then the Los Angeles Roadrunners. Is that a free group? Is there a charge?
I believe, yeah, there's a charge. There's a charge. I'm not sure the fee, but yeah, there is a charge. But again, I just think I actually train with, I thought about it. I trained with them for my 2013 and 14 LA marathon. I trained with them. So
Oh,
I was with a group, and it was I met a lot of amazing people there that I'm still friends with, and it was just an awesome experience. Again, just talking with people, experiencing the training, the training together, finishing the marathon, and then when this opportunity came, and I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna apply to be a pacer and join the group in a different way than just a runner, or but I'm also experiencing with them, because coming back after not running a marathon 3-4 years, I wanted to experience it like with everyone, with a group. So yeah.
so then after you had your baby, if I'm correct, well, and where you could start running, 2020 should have been your first marathon, or was it the 2020? Because we got to do LA and then everything shut down pretty much, and then I think they skipped 1 year or moved it to November, or was
Yeah,
it
well,
November 7th?
I didn't run it in 2020. I did pace a friend from
Okay.
mile 13 to the finish line. I met him halfway and I ran with him. But I didn't. I didn't feel like I was ready for a marathon,
Okay.
and then I just said, I'm gonna train for the 2021, and then they postponed it from March to May, and then to November. So yeah, so that was my first marathon since 2017. So almost
Okay.
4 years.
So are you looking, is there a little part of you that wants to PR for this one, at least from your previous marathon?
No, I'm just gonna run. No, just run and be healthy. I'm right now. That's my goal right now, is just finish healthy and finish strong. I my last the first LA marathon that I ran last in November, I had a cold. Of course, I got sick the week of, and it was a little hard to breathe. And it was cold, so but I finished and I felt good at the end. Physically, I felt good. Just up here, kind of felt congested, runny nose, but physically, I felt good. So hopefully, this in 9 days, that's the goal, just to finish strong and finish healthy, but no goal.
Okay. And finish is, I had that for many, many marathons. I'm like, my goal is just to finish, just to finish. So there's nothing wrong with that. And for a lot of people who've never done one and want to do one, just to finish is a great goal. And you're guaranteed a brand new a PR, which is personal record, because you've never done one before. So that's the cool part about being brand new to it. Uh, what would you recommend to anyone who wants to start running late?
I mean, just try it. I mean, one mile at a time. If it's run, walk, do it. I mean, and you'll know if you like it. I mean, it's not running is not for everyone. I know people who tried it and they're like, oh, this is just not for me. Not meaning like not for everyone, but I mean in the sense that if you don't like it, that's okay. There's other things that you can do to keep you healthy. But just try it. Just go out there and one mile at a time, one step at a time, and if you like it and you enjoy it, then you just start setting goals and just build. Little by little.
And is there any, besides the LA Roadrunners or Run With Us, is there anybody you want to give a shout out or mention to? And also, do you do any cross training besides running?
I do. I do three times a week. I do strength training, 30, 40 minutes the most. Yeah, so I think that's helped me this time around. Just staying healthy because knock on wood, I haven't had any injuries since I started running again. So yeah, I think that's helped me a lot, and I can
Yeah,
do it on my own, like at home, you know. Yeah,
yeah, I like how you say the most, but that's a lot when you compare it to the average person in the United States. You know, where we have an obesity problem, which leads to health issues, diabetes, and all other things. So, for you to be a mom, be a wife, and still get the training in because that's just weight training. That's separate from the running. So, my hats off to you. You know, my kids are grown now, but I remember it makes it more difficult and you know that is the audience cheering for you.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's impressive and it's not easy to do. But like you said, some of it is just momentum. Like how you mentioned, you started seeing the weight like shed, and then you start seeing other things, and then you start feeling better, and then you notice you're a little faster, or you can lift a little bit more, and that to me is the momentum you need to keep going. And then when you don't have it, like you mentioned, run with the groups. It's a great motivation.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's hard. I wake up before I go to work and do my runs. It's dark. And some, after work, if I do strength training, I have my daughter here for 30 minutes and, she's hanging out with me because once I pick her up, like, I don't want to leave her, I want to spend time with her. So I'm trying to play with her and try to work out. I mean, it's not easy, but I know I have to put in the work when I can to stay healthy and not be injured because again, that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy running and somehow I have to try to find time.
Does she try to run with you now?
You know what? Maybe like a block and a half before we're done with our runs, she gets off now. She'll say, "Can I get off? Off, mama." So I get her off, and she'll like jog and run up because it's a hill coming home. So she'll run and walk, and she said, "Let's run, mama, faster, faster." So she's actually running her first official race, the LA Kids Run, the day
Nice.
before the marathon. So I'm super excited to run it with her and finish. So far she seems like she likes it. I mean, she's only 3, but just to get her, exposed. We'll see, but yeah, she seems to like it.
Yeah, I personally enjoy that. And then I know a lot of coaches and trainers, and there's like as a parent, you're the example. So there's so many parents that will just take their kids to a soccer game and just sit down, or they want the kid to do karate or work out, but then they're not leading by example. So for you to actually run the race at such a young age, and of course you're not forcing her, something that she enjoys, that makes it better, because then they're catching interest on their own. So I think that's great, and that being a good mom. So um, I'm trying to remember when I met you, but I know it's been a while. I met you running. Like I meet a lot of people always working out. And like you mentioned, it's a great way to meet people. You talk to people. But now that I have a podcast, it's a great way to get more of that story, because sometimes, even though, we're like in the beginning, it's like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then you go run. And then after that, maybe you'll eat, or depending, some people have to go right away. So you have time to chat, but then there's other people. So it's really nice to get like that personal story. To me, it's always about the journey. It's not always about like, oh, I crossed the finish line. It's sometimes how did you get to the finish line? And now that you got to the finish line, what are you going to do, or whatever it is that you're doing? So that's why I reached out to you, and I wanted to have you as a guest, and especially for Women's History Month, you know, being a good mom and a good role model. So definitely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know you had to kind of hide from your daughter, because if not, I'm sure she'll be like wanting to play with you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank
Uh,
you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. And I just want to make sure, if there's anybody you want to shout out to, any running group or whatever you want to do, people, go for it.
I mean, there's just so many people, I mean, throughout my journey, I wish I should have made a list, but, just everybody, a few people that I mentioned here and there, Myra, Lopez, she's helped me a lot throughout my journey. Gerardo, too. I mean, and a lot of other groups, people that I've been with, like ambassadorships, like the New Year's race, a runner circle. I mean, that's where I saw you many times. I mean, just so many other people run with us. They help me, and also like people who sponsored me, who has sponsored like Gooder and like Vital for You, V Fuel. So thank you to everyone just everybody, friends and family who have been very supportive and support all this madness. But yeah.
That's always good when you have that supportive family and friends. And yeah, I'm always like watching the runners. I even they may not know who I am. I even before I had the show, I was always watching who's running, who's doing this, who's being active. And now I actually have a place where I could bring them on and spotlight them. So if you haven't heard from me, you will hear from me. And thank you so much once again for being on here. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. This has been Coach Ray Z, Athletic Definition. We will be back next week, Thursday and Friday, with all new guests. Friday will be Brutal Viking. I got to double check, but I know she swam. I don't know if it was in college. And then she became a jiu-jitsu, like, choke artist. And I mean, she's choking other people, winning all kinds of tournaments. And when I met her, she was a white belt and I was a white belt. Now she's a purple belt, higher than me. So I haven't got to train with her in a long time. I'm sure she could probably choke me out by now. So looking forward to that. And thank you once again for being here. Thank you, everybody. Till next time, I hope you enjoyed it.
Bye.